This is Christopher John Bjerknes. It is August 21st, 2025. Candace Owens has started to talk about the Talmudic discussions of whether or not a child of 3 years old, a little girl, who is defiled by a man can still be considered a virgin for purposes of marriage. As per usual, Candace misapprehends the whole nature of the topic, and she really ought to platform me and consult directly with me about these things before she begins to discuss them, because I've been studying this stuff all my life. I have a public 30-year track record of getting this right. I properly understand it and she doesn't, and she can be easily manipulated by the enemy and the enemy's sophistry. The enemy is very much aware of how damaging this is to the view of not only their faith but themselves. And whenever accusations of pedophilia come up, as in the case of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, Donald Trump, Vladimir Putin, etc., the rabbis who rape little kids and then go to their sanctuary of Israel, where extradition is prohibited, Israeli government officials who are caught and have an indictment, a felony indictment prepared against them, who are permitted to flee to Israel and then defended by Netanyahu. When all this comes up, as it so often does, because so many of the enemy are habitual pedophiles, the topic of the Talmud comes up. And the Talmud has several discussions, as many are very familiar with, several discussions about having sex with 3-year-old girls and little boys, and whether or not they can still be considered virgins for the purposes of marriage. And I covered that in a video. I've covered it in my books since 2006. My book, The Manufacture and Sale of St. Einstein, my book, E = MC squared, and the Jewish Agenda, etc., etc. I've discussed it in interviews over and over again. I understand this subject, and I'm the only one who brings the Zohar into this. And the Zohar says that Isaac, son of Abraham, father of Esau and Jacob, was a pedophile, and that his foreign wife, Rebecca, was 3 years old when they wed, and that he began having sexual intercourse with her from the age of 3 onward, but that she, or both she and he, were infertile. And 20 years later, when Isaac began to pray for a child, and when his prayers reached across the astral plane and actually made it to God, as the Zohar explains, lo and behold, finally, both Isaac and Rebekah became fertile when she was 23 and when he was 60. He married Rebekah when he was 40, and she was 3, according to the oral traditions of Judaism. There are differing traditions, but that is the authoritative tradition. It is shown to be authoritative by the fact that that is the history, the historical story that is presented in the Zohar itself, the most authoritative text in Judaism. So Candace is a babe in the woods, and she will not be able to refute all of the sophistries that the rabbis are obliged to throw at her. The Talmud also makes clear that it is not only permissible but obligatory to the enemy to lie to Gentiles about the enemy's beliefs and to kill anyone who investigates those beliefs and studies the Torah, in this case, particularly the oral Torah of the Talmud. So I'm in danger, Candace is in danger, anyone who discusses these things is under the sword of Damocles and the imminent threat of death by the rabbis, and the rabbis put curses on people, the rabbis poison people, the rabbis commission assassins. It's a very real threat. It's been going on for thousands of years. So let's have a look at what Candace said and what I've been saying, and then for my paid Substack subscribers, I'm going to dig into the literature and really prove what I'm saying with the original sources. And I am going to refute and debunk all the lies that the enemy throws at people who begin to investigate this and expose it. And Candace really needs to platform me about this and discuss this with me. She does not understand it, and she is not on a level where she can engage in a scholarly discussion of it and credibly refute all the lies that are being thrown her way, as always happens when this stuff is exposed. So this is the post from Candace that I'm referring to. I have seen people debate the Talmud, specifically verses about whether having sex with 3-year-olds is criminal. It is absolutely not criminal. It is encouraged. Well, the enemy is in exile. The enemy is obligated to follow the laws of the host nations in which they reside to subvert. And they are also commanded by the law to follow those laws, which is why they always seek to get officially set by the government under their own set of laws so that they can engage in these things. But they obviously don't openly engage in these things in nations where these things are illegal, though they are repeatedly and often caught engaging in these behaviors, which are perfectly legal under Jewish law. Talmudists rebut its merely centuries-old rabbinical debate. My question is, in what century was it cool for spiritual authorities to debate sex with toddlers? The Talmud was composed between 200 and 600 AD. It is recounting the oral tradition, which explains the cryptic meaning of the written Torah. They wanted to document the oral Torah because they were fearful that since they had been sent into the diaspora, into the Roman exile, that all of this knowledge would be lost. But this knowledge was current when the written Torah was written. Jesus Christ referred to these Pharisaical traditions being the oral tradition, which describe exactly what the written tradition is to mean. So this goes back at least to 300 BC, around 273 BC, when the Septuagint was composed and the Torah and the book of Genesis was laid out. This oral tradition explaining the story of Isaac and Rebekah was kept hidden because it was so disgusting and perverse, as so much of the real meaning of the written Torah was kept hidden, but preserved in the oral Torah of the Midrash, the Talmud, and most significantly, Kabbalah. So Candace is in over her head on all this. She misapprehends all this, and her misapprehensions are dangerous to her reputation. And if her reputation is thoroughly destroyed, as may be by design for all we know, it affects all of us, including those of us like me who have been doing the scholarly research for 30 years. So she owes it not only to herself, but to my reputation to get all of this right and to refute all of the sophistry that the enemy presents to try to conceal what is obviously true about all this. And it is obviously true that the enemy has a culture, an ancient culture of pedophilia, which they continue to this day and which they utilize to blackmail and extort our politicians, our industrialists, our academics, our journalists, the owners of the press, the media, actors and actresses, etc., anyone who is prominent in public life is apt to be lured by agents of the enemy or the enemy itself into engaging in pedophilia, which is legal for the enemy to do under the enemy's laws, so that they can then be extorted and blackmailed. I responded with several posts trying to clarify these things for Candace and her audience. And long before Candace was discussing this, I released a video on this. Sex with 3-year-old girls is legal under Jewish law, quoted in their own words from the Zohar and the Talmud. I went through, I gave the Zoharic passages, I gave the Talmudic passages, and I'm just going to briefly go over this so that people can see all that. This is very credible. This is not something that anyone fabricated. I and many others have been talking about this for decades. There are many scholars who have been discussing this for centuries. And so the enemy has had a long time to build up lies and to determine which lies it can tell the gullible goyim that will succeed in misleading them. And then these lies get quoted by others as if authoritative, and they try to bury the whole story and say that the Gentiles are too stupid to understand what is plainly stated, and it has to be given context and explained, and it's all allegorical, etc., which is all complete nonsense. The Zohar and other passages make very clearly that the origins of Esau and Jacob through Isaac and Rebekah relate to the idea that Isaac was 40 years old when he married the Aramean princess, I guess you could say, Rebekah, and began having sex with her, but the couple was infertile until 20 years later when he became 60 years old. Now that is presented as historical fact, and not only in the Zohar, but also in the Talmud, in the tractate Sopharim, in folio 19. And for my paid subscribers, I'm going to get into all of that now. If you would like to see all that verifiable documentation, I'm going to show you straight out of the authoritative translations directly from the books. I'm going to read it straight to you. It is irrefutable. If you see this and watch this, you will be able to debunk all the lies that all of the agents of the enemy and the enemy itself present to try to sanitize what is obviously stated in the Talmud. So if you'd like to see all that, be sure to get a paid subscription at CJBbooks.substack.com. Please do visit my website, CJBbooks.com. If you're able to and you feel that I deserve it, please give me a contribution. I rely upon contributions to continue in my work. My work is thoroughly suppressed, and Candace Owens could definitely help out with that. And I can do a lot more for her than she can do for me, but it would be good to get this word out to millions of people credibly and in a scholarly and authoritative fashion and in a documented fashion. I was the one who turned Candace on to the fact that Rabbi Shmuley was affiliated with Chabad Lubavitch, and that Rebbe Menachem Mendel Schneerson of Chabad Lubavitch stated that Gentiles have 3 satanic souls from 3 satanic spheres, cloud, wind, and fire. I pointed her to Israel Shahak's book and his translations of these things and explanations of these things. I pointed out that Donald Trump and Netanyahu are also affiliated with Chabad, and I gave her lessons on all of this, and she immediately began citing it. I hope she immediately begins citing all of this, and hopefully this time she'll give me some credit and she'll platform me from this so that we can take this to the next level. So now for my paid subscribers, let's start digging in. This is from the Zohar.